Good morning, everybody. Any questions? Any comments? Any problems? Yes.
I found an interesting article in one of the women's magazines, I think it was Family Circle, or Women's Day. And the point that you mentioned the other day about how children become extortionate when the parents have invested in their life.
Yes. Yes. And Landers knows about that too. She must have some spies here.
There's a great cartoon on top of the New Yorker where a family's sitting around the lawyer's office, and the lawyer's reading a will, and it says, "Will read, being of sound mind and body, I blew it all." Requires good timing, but it's a great idea.
That's very good. Any other comments? Is there anything you would like to know about metapsychiatry? Anything particular? Yes?
Just my first course with you, I was just wondering, you touched on the very beginning, and we kind of got into cases, but you just mentioned in the very beginning the relationship of physical ailments being, the genesis being psychosomatic. I should say something about that, please.
Yes. Well, we had a whole course on psychosomatic medicine. Apparently you weren't here then. The basic stuff of life is thought. You know, the Gospel of St. John starts, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." Now, what do you think does that mean? What does St. John mean by the Word?
Right.
Now, what does that mean?
You're trying to say that, from the very beginning, God was, and Christ was the Word, and is the Word, and was also from the beginning.
And what does it mean when you say Christ was the Word and is the Word?
Well, they speak about intellectual generation. Christ coming from the Father. He's being the express thought of the Father in that sense.
So then what it means that thought is the basic stuff of life. That reality is essentially mental, spiritually mental. Right, Clark? You have another theological explanation?
Well, I would think of the word as communication, as communication. That words are means for putting ideas, transmitting ideas.
Yes.
From one to another.
Yes. Well, that's the transportation of the word. But the word itself is idea, expressed in the form of a concept. Concepts, in turn, can be expressed either verbally or take on some form. How did God create light? He said, "Let there be light." God created the universe as a thought. The whole universe and everything in it is an idea taking form in the divine mind. The Bible says, "The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof." Creative ideas obtain in consciousness and they transmute themselves in an infinite variety of forms. Everything that is perfect, that is harmonious, that is intelligent, beautiful, good, loving, is born in the divine mind and takes on form in the universe and become manifest. The non-manifest becomes manifest in the universe. Quite analogously, since man is the image and likeness of God, man becomes aware of ideas obtaining in consciousness. These ideas, which we call thoughts, are units of mental energy. And according to the laws of thermodynamics, energy has a tendency to transmute itself into other forms. And so we find that the thoughts which obtain in our consciousness have a tendency to become concepts, speech, behavior, and symptoms. Therefore, our concepts, our speech, our behavior, and our symptoms are nothing else but thoughts manifesting themselves in visible forms. Therefore, speech, concept, speech, behavior, symptoms are called phenomena. Phenomena are thoughts appearing as form. everything in the phenomenal world is a manifestation of thought. And when we are confronted with a symptom, let's say a physical symptom, then we ask the question, what is the meaning of this phenomenon? What is the meaning of what seems to be? We don't ask the question, why do we have this symptom? We can ask that, but we will never really get very far on the basis of cause and effect reasoning. Why is a question presuming that everything that seems to be has a cause. So in metapsychiatry, we transcend cause and effect reasoning, and we ask a different question. We ask, what is the meaning of what seems to be? Now, if we have been trained in phenomenological perceptiveness, we will be able to discern the meaning of a physical symptom, or as we call it, phenomenon. The symptom and phenomenon are synonyms, right? Now, if we succeed in correctly discerning the meaning of a phenomenon, then we have the mental equivalent of that symptom. What do we mean by the mental equivalent? Yes, a mental equivalent is the thought which originally obtained in consciousness, which has become the symptom. You see, the thought didn't cause the symptom. The thought has become the symptom. Is this clear? It is important to differentiate. We do not ascribe power to thoughts. Thoughts cannot cause anything to happen. But thoughts can become behavior or speech or symptoms. Therefore, we speak of the mental equivalent of a symptom, be it emotional or mental or physical or behavioral or social or political or economic. It is always, the problem is always a thought. Not all thoughts give us problems. Certain thoughts heal us, and other thoughts make us sick. How is that possible? Some thoughts have healing effect, and some thoughts are pathogenic. It's really very simple, except you're not used to thinking this way. You're used to thinking that emotions can make you sick, right? Hate, resentment. We know that if somebody is resentful or hateful or malicious or bitter or feeling sorry for himself or hostile, he can develop all sorts of problems from. But conventional psychological thinking stops at the point of affect. They say emotions can cause you to be sick. Wrong kind of emotions. It is not really correct. Emotions will not cause you to be sick. Emotions are the sickness. And emotions are not primary. They are only manifestations of thought processes. What is primary is thought. Suppose a man has a thought that his wife is a castrating woman. He may get such a thought by reading the newspapers or a book or something. Now, that thought may transmute itself into an emotion of fear or hatred or resentment. Now, this thought having transmuted itself into the emotion of resentment and fear can further transmute itself into a symptom of impotency or grinding the teeth in his sleep, and may develop a sexual problem or a dental problem. And he goes to the dentist, and the dentist fixes his teeth. And it seems to be temporarily all right, but the basic idea has not been healed. Or he goes to a sex therapist, he learns how to overcome his impotence. But the basic problem has not been touched, because the root of the problem is a thought. And unless the thought is healed, the problem is not healed. It may be just alleviated. But you see, whether it is the teeth or the penis or the sex or rheumatism, the root of the problem is a thought. Can you see that? Therefore, we say the physical is mental. But if in metapsychiatry we succeed in discerning the basic thought which underlies a whole series of complex problems, and we can help a patient to correct his thought, then indeed he can be healed. And the various phenomena disappear. And what we have is a healing rather than just a cure. You see, there is a great difference between a cure and a healing. A cure is just a removal of certain symptoms through a variety of ways. But healing implies the re-establishment of wholeness in an individual. What do we mean by wholeness? What is wholeness? Who knows what is wholeness? Suppose you have both arms and legs and the head and the neck. Are you whole? No?
Physically whole.
Physically.
I think that the words whole and health.
Yes, right. Now what? That means that we have to revise the general idea about health, right? Just because we are physically healthy, it doesn't mean that we are whole.
If we are whole, we be physically healthy.
Yes, right. It would be very helpful to know what we mean by wholeness. Wholeness is that which is not broken. Well, if we are physically healthy, in perfect shape, are we broken? Can we be broken and look perfectly healthy? Yes. What then is this brokenness, which indicates that we are not whole? Where is the break?
I'm thinking, well, instead of broken, I was thinking of thing divided.
Yes, when something is broken, it's divided. Right. It's not whole. Okay, you are getting warm. Tell us, what do you mean? What do you mean?
Well, it could be like an inner division, going a couple different directions.
No, you're not getting warm.
Lack of integration.
Lack of integration. Could you explain that?
I like thinking in terms of spiritual integration.
Yes. What would
Centered.
that mean? Wait. What is spiritual integration? Being centered. We hear these words, very nice, very important words, but we do have to understand what they mean. It's important. If we want to be whole ourselves, if we want to be able to help others to become whole, we have to know what we mean by these words. Yes?
I'm just thinking that when our thoughts then are based or rooted in truth and love and beauty, then we are whole.
When our thoughts are based,
System. Creation.
yeah. Well, you mean, and then if we think these thoughts,
Yeah, if our thoughts are, goodness, of truth, of beauty,
Yes,
and those things, then we will be whole.
yes. Well, then what you suggest as a therapy is thinking good thoughts. It's like the power of positive thinking, no?
Sounds
Of course, that's very good, but it's not enough, right? Yes, Gertrude?
You were talking about broken,
Yes,
and isn't it that that the circuit is broken,
Right.
that you've lost contact
Right.
with the source of your being,
Right.
love.
Very good. Yes, Gertrude. Now tell us more about it.
That's all I know. No, I was thinking of your example of the tree, and the leaf doesn't exist without the roots, and is
Yes.
that what we're talking about?
Right. If you remove a leaf from a tree, it ceases to be a leaf. It becomes trash.
Because that's the brokenness.
Right. Right. Now, how does this analogy apply to us?
If we lose our sense of where our intelligence comes from,
Right.
and we think that it comes from ourselves,
Right.
and then we're broken.
Right. Wonderful. Let's all give a hand to Gertrude. These years were not wasted on this. Have you all understood what Gertrude said? Yes? There must be a conscious awareness of our inseparability and perfect oneness with the divine mind, which we call infinite love intelligence, which is the source of our being, and from where our energy, our strength, our love, and our valid ideas constantly flow into consciousness. And when this connectedness, this oneness is actualized in our lives, in our mode of being in the world, then we are spiritually integrated, we are living creatively, and we are not broken, but we are whole. This is what we mean by wholeness, the at-one-ment.
Dr. Hora?
Yes.
It occurred to me that it might be interesting to us to comment that the word devil, diabolic, has its roots in the Greek words for tearing apart, cutting through, throwing asunder.
Yes.
The destruction of this.
How is diabolos?
Diabolos.
Yes.
And diabolos.
Very good. Very good. Right, you see. You could also say devil is dividing, right? Yes. Yes. Now, devil is, of course, a religious personalization of an evil influence in life. And in metapsychiatry, we have another word for devil. What is it?
Ignorance.
that is not a special for metapsychiatry. We have a special word for it in metapsychiatry. Would you like to know? Self-confirmatory ideation. Have you ever heard that word? Self-confirmatory ideation. The devil whispers into consciousness, you are a person. You have your own mind. You are a self-made individual. You don't need this religious mumbo-jumbo. You are a scientifically educated person. You can figure things out for yourself. You can be autonomous. And you can take credit for everything that you do. When it comes to blaming, you shift it on Ted Smith. But credit, you can take credit for everything. This is what the modern devil calls self-confirmatory ideation, whispers into consciousness, and through that process creates a division, a separation, or a breakup between human consciousness and divine reality. When we look deeply into human pathology, be it emotional or physical or interpersonal or any other kind, at the root of it, if we ask, what is this thought which we discover at the root of these problems, we will find that the thoughts which are pathogenic, all illness-producing thoughts have the character of self-confirmatory ideation. Yes?
Dr. Hora, you mentioned earlier emotions are not primary, but are manifestations of thought processes.
Correct.
And you were talking about hate, rage. Now, how about the infant? I mean, the infant rages out of frustration. How does that relate to a thought process? I mean, this is at a pre-thought, pre-thinking
Preconceptual, at a preconceptual level.
Yeah, at a preconceptual
Yes.
level.
Well, the concept is being bypassed, but the thought is there. I'm hungry. But it is not formed into a concept. After a certain age, but with some people, like for instance, impulsive people, again, the concept is being bypassed, and the thought is quickly translated either into emotion or action. They do not reflect. They do not conceptualize. Impulsive people have a limited tendency to conceptualize. Now, intellectuals have too much of a tendency to conceptualize. So it is just a matter of that the energy transformation takes a shortcut. For instance, in an explosive, and what is an explosive is when a spark doesn't become a flame. but it becomes an explosion. So there are individuals in whom the transmutation of energy goes directly into behavior, yelling and screaming. There are such explosive personalities and impulsive person. And that's how it is with a child. But otherwise, children in general are extensions of parental consciousness. And what is a thought in parental consciousness is quickly becoming behavior or emotion in the children.
I wasn't thinking of children. I was
Infants.
thinking of infants.
Yes,
Early infancy.
the same thing. Thought is translated into screaming without it becoming a concept. Heraclitus, the famous Greek philosopher, said, "Without thought there is nothing. Sine ratione nihil est." Thought is the basic stuff of life. And everything in life is a thought. The whole universe is a thought. Yes.
Then we could say that thought is preconceptual in its very nature.
Of course.
Are there thoughts that are neither healing nor destructive, but merely indifferent? Or are those just conceptualizations? Say I look across and I see a chair. That's a thought.
Yes.
I don't know that it's either healing or destructive.
Depends on whether you're interested in that chair. If you're interested in chairs, then the thought chair can become charged. And then it can transmute it. Oh, I hate that chair. Or I love that chair. I admire that chair. So there is the concept of chair, and then there is a value judgment, which most of the time accompanies our concept. But the value judgments are also thoughts and also concepts.
Aren't you saying then that the value judgment is the basic thought that that brings the difficulty though with it, that transmutes itself?
Certainly, our tendencies towards judging, they are the most troublesome things that we experience, certainly. But that is also a thought. See, Shakespeare said, there is nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And the Bible says, as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. And Buddha said, we are what we think, having become what we have thought. Yes.
Can we pursue this a little more then? Our nature of thought is basically a perspective on existence. When we're looking for underlying thoughts, we're not looking for a particular concept, but a way of seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we see with our thoughts, Ted, we don't really see what is. We interpret what we see. Yes? Any other?
Well, then we don't see with our concepts, but we see with an underlying perspective.
Well, what would that be? What's an underlying perspective?
I guess it's a way of depicting existence, a way of seeing existence as beneficial or as loving or as destructive.
Yes, but those are all thoughts. Underlying perspectives are also thoughts tinged with value judgments.
All I'm suggesting is perhaps it hasn't been conceptualized. It may not at all be conscious in the individual.
Yes. Well, there are also unconscious concepts, you see. We may not be aware of them. For instance, somebody doesn't like red and he doesn't realize it. And he may break up in an allergic reaction without being aware that he was thinking red is bad for me. Or something like that. Or pollen. Pollen is bad for me. Pollen is an enemy. It breaks out in allergy. It suffers. He thinks he suffers from the pollen, but he suffers from his thoughts about the pollen. Yes?
If you see if I have it correctly, if valid thoughts come from the creative love intelligence,
Right.
and you said that invalid thoughts come from seed mental garbage.
Right.
I've always been confused about that.
What's so confusing
The
about that?
idea of the seed mental
This-
garbage. Could you describe it?
Yes.
You mean?
Who knows what we mean by the sea of mental garbage? Have you ever heard that metapsychiatric fantasy? We postulate the sea of mental garbage, just as Teilhard de Chardin postulates the noosphere, which is the mental climate in which we experience our daily lives, determined by the culture and the thinking of the people around us and the media, the television, the newspaper, the radio, our friends and our enemies, what they are thinking, what they are communicating overtly or covertly, consciously or unconsciously, subliminally. We are exposed to a tremendous amount of stimuli coming into our consciousness from the world through our sensory apparatus. And the sum total of these stimuli we have called the sea of mental garbage. Because these stimuli refer to the world accessible to sensory perception. But the ideas, the spiritual ideas, which are healing and wholesome and liberating, these do not come to us through the channels of the senses. They come through inspiration from the divine mind, the source, creative love intelligence. Now, in order to remain whole, it is very important to cultivate the ability of discernment, where we can be aware what the source of our ideas is. Are they coming from the sea of mental garbage? Or are they coming from the infinite ocean of love intelligence? At this point, it will be helpful to remind you that in the book of Genesis, it is written, and God said, let there be a firmament dividing the waters from the waters. And God created the firmament and divided the waters which were below the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And saw that it was good. Now, what do you think does this refer to?
The creative thoughts and the imbalance.
Right. The sea of mental garbage below the firmament and the ocean of love intelligence above the firmament. In the process of growing increasingly enlightened, we become aware of all thoughts and their origin. We can know whether thoughts are coming to us from below the firmament or whether they are coming from above the firmament. And the more receptive we are to the thoughts reaching our consciousness from the above the firmament, the more wholesome and creative and harmonious our lives become. And that's what metapsychiatric therapy endeavors to make possible for the seekers after the light. One more question.
You should identify the way these things come to be. I just this might be too long a question for quite too long an answer, but just kind of like maybe some insight as to how would you begin, say, the healing process with someone, say, who had these things for us, like you mentioned before.
Yes. I'm glad you asked this question because this will give us a good opportunity to cover this whole issue which you started. We thank you for it. The entire method of metapsychiatric therapy is based on two intelligent questions. The first one we have alluded to already. It says, what is the meaning of what seems to be? And the second question is, does anyone know? What is what really is? So, first we seek to understand the mental equivalent of a particular problem by asking the first question. What is the meaning of what seems to be? Having thus discerned through phenomenological analysis this mental equivalent, we are in the position to help an individual to correct his thought by confronting it with another thought which is existentially valid. What is what really is? For instance, if somebody has messed up his checking account by mistakenly believing that 2 and 2 is 5, then he has to face the question, what is what really is? How much is 2 and 2 really? And once he understands what the 2 and 2 really is 4, then the checking account can be healed. And similarly, it is in life. We get victimized by our existentially invalid thoughts, which we unwittingly accept from the sea of mental garbage. And then we have to trace back this thought, discover the mistake, and correct it. And the healing follows as a consequence, proving the validity of our approach.